عذابا كلما كثرت لديه تهين المكرمين لها بصور وتكرم كل من هانت عليه إذا استغنيت عن شيء فداه وخذ ما أنت محتاج.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Dear brothers and sisters, we are now ready for the second lecture of the day, this first day of our fifth conference. First day in this fifth conference for the Islamic youth of Odense and Denmark and all the countries that visit us. This is the second lecture, and the subject of the lecture is the grave of the tomb and its affairs. And inshallah, the speaker now is sheikh Waseem Kemson. And since most of you don't know Sheikh Waseem Kemson, I will just read a few details about him. Our beloved brother is born British, and he converted to Islam when he was 17 years old, while he was still in college. Afterwards, he traveled to Medina and attended the Islamic University of Medina, where he also stayed for 7 years. And now he's, alhamdulillah, an imam in a mosque called Al-Muntada in west of London. So on behalf of all of us, I wish him welcome. فليتفضل مشكورا مأجورا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. عليكم السلام ورحمة الله. سكورما. الحمد لله. So the title of my lecture is Al-Barzakh, the grave. But before I mention, I'm going to the topic, there's a couple of things I want to mention. That many a time you listen to a lecture and it's beneficial for you. However, for the time that you are here, over the next few days, if possible, it would be fantastic, it would be beautiful if you could allow your heart to be open. That every piece of information that you hear from all of the respected speakers and shuyukh, every piece of information that they give to you is the truth. As clear as it is that you are looking at me now, as clear as it is that you are in this hall and that everything feels very real to you, everything that is being said to you, even though you didn't see it, even though you haven't tasted or smelled anything, it's all true. And it is as true, if not more of a truth, than that what you think that you know now. Because what you think you know now is based upon what? Your own mind. Maybe you're right, maybe you are wrong. However, the information that is given to you is wahyun min Allah, is revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or ahadith, which is also revelation from the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So for sure it is true. There are twins. There are twins. And these two twins, they haven't been born yet. They are still in their mother's stomach. Imagine. They have a conversation. So this isn't real. This is an example for you. These two twins, they have an example. And one of them, he says, do you think that there is a life after this? Or do you think this is it? The other one says, what are you talking about? This is it. This is our life. Have you ever seen anybody go and come back? He said, no. He said, how could there be another life? For many of us, this is maybe how we think. That have we ever spoke to somebody who's actually gone to the other side and come back and told me what it's like? Is the information that I receive or that I hear, it sounds nice. I know this is part of Islam, but really, when you ask yourself, what level, or what is the strength of your iman, or how much certainty do you have when you hear these things? How much? There's a companion of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and his name is Amr ibn al-As radiyallahu anhu. He's a great companion. And when he became old, very old, he retired to his home, and he felt as though death was very close to him. And so his son Abdullah radiyallahu anhu wa an abi, he came to visit his father, and he found his father weeping and crying on the bed, facing the wall. This is one of the great companions of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said, his son said to him, Ya abati, O my father, did Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam give you some information, give you glad tidings, what is going to happen next? He turned around and he looked at his son. He said, Ya bunayya, O my son. Because he realizes now death is about to come upon him, and he's about to leave this earth. Have you ever thought what it is like at that moment when your life is over? Maybe when you think, I'm going to hold my breath and I won't breathe, and maybe the person would die. But it gets to a stage where you think, I don't want to die. You'll take your breath. But you have that choice. You have that choice of taking another breath to ensure that you continue living. Because you want to live. Because you want to keep living. I don't know what age you want to live up to. But a day will come that maybe you don't have that opportunity to take another breath. Your last breath, and that's it. Your soul will be taken. So Amr ibn al-As radiyallahu anhu, he knew time was very, very close. And he said, because you know when you hear things, when a person has a very close interaction with death, they had a very close incident where maybe they thought they were going to die. They said, my life flashed before me. I saw my life flash before me. They remembered important things. Here this companion is remembering important things. In fact, he mentions the most important thing. The most important thing. He said, you know, the best thing that I can count on, the thing which I value most is what? Is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. This is the best thing that I have with me to take with me in the hereafter. And this has such importance and is such relevance for us. Why? Why is this important for us? Because this is what Muslims say. We say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, so it's just important. Imagine yourselves. In fact, if you've got Google Maps, and you pinpoint where you are, you can actually get a map of probably what this wall looks like from above. And if it was a live feed, you'd see it's all full of Muslims. But if you slowly zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, you'll find that that large area of Muslims becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And as you zoom out, almost your presence or your existence is like a dot in this country of Denmark. And then you keep zooming out, and the surrounding countries and the amount of Muslims that there are, they're very few. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose you and gave you Iman and guided you to Islam. Now for many of you, I want to ponder over this. I never had this. For nearly all of you, what is the greatest ni'mah, the greatest blessing that can be given to any one person? Islam. Iman, belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the greatest ni'mah. Now for many blessings, you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them. You ask Allah, oh Allah, give me wealth, what money? Oh Allah, grant me a pious husband. Oh Allah, grant me a pious wife. So you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for many ni'mah, many blessings. And maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you that. However, the ni'mah, the blessing which is greater than all of that, Allah gave that to you and you didn't even ask for it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided you to Islam and you didn't even ask Him for it. Subhanallah. That Allah loves you so much that He guided you to Islam. That He gave you Iman and you didn't even ask for it. Allahu Akbar. How merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to you. So the statement of Amr ibn As radiallahu anhu, he said, the biggest thing that I value now, the most important thing that I have with me now, is that I made the statement of La ilaha illallah. That when you leave this life, you leave this worldly life, this temporary life, because it's a very short time, you ensure that when you go on to the next journey, and be sure that you will go on that journey. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ, that every soul shall taste death. How you will taste death? Allahu bihi alim. Only Allah knows. But you will taste death. So you want to ensure that when you leave this life, that you want to carry with you this great ni'mah of Iman and submission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Amr ibn As radiallahu anhu, do you know why he valued this statement so much? The statement that La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasul is so important to me. Because he said, you know, there was a time when there was no person that I hated more than an-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. There was no other person that I had an aversion to, that I couldn't stand an-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I had it within myself. If I had the chance to overpower him and kill him, I would have done it. Before he was guided to Islam. And for sure, if I had done that, I would have been from the people of hellfire. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instilled the love of Islam in my heart. Allah gave that to me. So He valued it. Sometimes you're given something, you don't value it. This blessing of Islam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to you, occasions like this is a reminder to you what Allah has given you. Because maybe for the 11 months of the year that you don't attend something like this, you become forgetful. You become heedless. An occasion like this is a great ni'mah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless every single individual who has put something forward to make this possible. And all praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow this to continue year after year. Ameen.
Ameen.
So Amr ibn As said, then Allah instilled the love of Islam in my heart. And then when that love of Islam came, I went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I put my hand out to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam to give my allegiance to him. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam then put his hand out. He said, then I took my hand away. He said, Ya Amr, what's wrong with you? He said, Ya Rasulullah, I have conditions. You have conditions? He said, I have conditions. He said, my condition is that if I embrace Islam, I want to be forgiven. I want Allah to forgive me. Allah to pardon me. And then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to him, are you not aware that Islam wipes out everything that came before it? Anything that you did previously will be removed, forgiven. It didn't exist if you're true to your word in saying La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And that making hijrah wipes out that what was previous to it. And likewise the Hajj will wipe it out. And then he said, radiyallahu anhu, that my love for the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was then so much. I love Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam so much that I was shy to stare at him. I couldn't take a full glimpse of him, I was so shy. If you asked me to describe him, I couldn't. This is how much love he had for Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then he gave an advice to his family that when he was to die, this is how they should behave, and this is the things that they should follow, following the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So then the soul is taken from the body. Because you are made up of a body and a soul. Your body, you can see it, you can touch it, you can see it in the mirror, your body. Can you see your soul? You cannot see your soul, but you have a soul. In fact, your soul existed before your body. And when you pass away, and that your body is returned to the ground, your soul will exist. And as was mentioned previously, a time will come when you are raised once again in a bodily form with your soul there. So we have this life of 60 or 70 years, maybe 30 years. Death, it doesn't know any age. It can come at any time. Just today, subhanAllah, just today. There's a brother that I know. His son passed away at 3 years old, wallah, this morning. 3 years old, young boy, he passed away. Death knows no age. And it can come to any one of us at any time. And as Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that death is closer to any one of you than the laces on your shoes. It's next to you. It could come at any time. So this short time we have on this earth will have an impact on eternity. Imagine that. The small time you have on this earth, 20, 30, 40 years, let's give you 100 years. That will have an impact on eternity for you. And what's eternity? You can't imagine what eternity is. Forever and ever, no end. So how important it is, for usage of none of a better word, for you to behave properly in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while you are here now. For you to know how am I to worship my Lord. Because the next stage of your life in the barzakh, in the grave, the servant will be shown their place either in Jannah or the hellfire. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already created a nar. The hellfire has been created. And the Jannah has been created. And there's a place for you in both of those places. There's a place there for you in Jahannam and a place there for you in Jannah. So it's not one place is going to be too full that you can't enter it. One of them is waiting for you. And while you are in your grave, you will be shown this one or that one. There is something called adhab al-qabr, the punishment of the grave, and the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as is found in the hadith of Aisha radiyallahu anha, that he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam كان يستعيذ من أربع. He would seek refuge, seek protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in 4 things. One of those things was adhab al-qabr, from the punishment of the grave. When Uthman radiyallahu anhu, when he would look over the grave, he would begin crying. And he would know and he would say that this is the first stage of the hereafter. The first stage of the hereafter. That a person who has a good state in the grave, then that what follows will be good. And that person who has a bad state in the grave, then that what follows will also be bad. Because it is a matter of the unseen, no one of us has seen what happens in the grave to the soul. We don't know what happens. Therefore, we are reliant on what? To inform us what is going to happen. You can't make it up. You are reliant on either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling you what's happening, or Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam telling you what is going to happen. One of the most comprehensive, the most complete narrations about what happens to every single one of us is the hadith of Al-Bara ibn Azib. And it's a long hadith. Now, because it is a matter of the unseen, we are forced to listen to what happens in the grave from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this long hadith describes the journey of the believing soul and the disbelieving soul and what happens to them. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that verily when a believing servant, that they are at the point of departing and leaving this worldly life, angels, malaika, that they come down from Al-Jannah, angels, that their faces are white, bright, like the sun, and that they carry with them a shroud from the clothes of Jannah, and an embalmment, something that they will, embalm the body, to clean the body, to make it smell nice and fresh. From the scents of Jannah will be brought for this soul. And they sit away from that soul as far as the eye can see. And then the angel of death comes. So, as your soul is about to be taken, angels come down. If you are a believing soul, and they're looking upon what the angel of death is going to do, to take your soul. Then the angel of death arrives and sits at the head and says, "Oh good, peaceful soul, depart from this body and go into Allah's forgiveness." On hearing this, the believing soul, it leaves the body, just like water when you're pouring water out of a jug, it just flows, comes out easy. And the soul leaves the body. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that when the soul, it is leaving the body, the eyes will follow. This was said centuries ago. The eyes, that they will follow and they will see the soul leave. And it's exactly what happens. That the eyes, they are like staring. They are staring as the soul leaves the body. So when the soul, the believing soul, leaves the body, all angels between the heavens and the earth, they make dua for that believing soul. And the gates of Al-Jannah, the paradise, that they are opened for that soul. And the guardians of every gate. Please remember who the malaika are, or the angels. Remember when you meet somebody, you meet a sheikh, or you meet an imam, or you meet somebody you believe to be a pious person. What do you say to them? Make dua for me. Don't you? Make dua for me. The companions used to go to the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and say, make dua for me. Make dua for my newborn baby. You can do that. You can go to somebody whom you believe inshallah is pious, ask, make dua for me. Even though they may have sins. Imagine the malaika. لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. They never disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have no sins. They're the purest of pure. And they make dua for the believing soul. Will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reject such a supplication from such a pure creation? These are the type of realities that we should think about. And you should ponder over. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided you to this deen, and these things are very real. They're not fairy stories. They're real. This is what will happen. And this is what will happen to the believing soul. And you want to have a believing soul. So all of these angels and the guardians of the gates of the Jannah, they are supplicating for this believing soul. As the soul ascends and goes in that direction. When the angel of death then takes the soul, the other angels, they say, do not leave it in his hand for the blinking of the eye. Do not leave the soul with the angel of death. That they want to take this believing soul, they want to shroud it and embalm it from those things that were taken from the paradise. Then the most beautiful smell emanates and comes from this believing soul. And then the angels, that they go up with this believing soul in this state. People asking, who is this good soul? Who is this beautiful smelling soul? Praising this soul. And they say, this is so and so. This is so and so. And they mention your name, using the best names that they can describe you with. And then when they reach the lowest heaven, just before they reach the lowest heaven, the most elite and the highest of angels, fi illiyin, they say, write the servants' records and then let it be preserved. Then his records, or her records, are then preserved, and then the angels are told, take the soul back. Because the time for entering Jannah is not now. Take the soul back. Take the soul back to the body. And then it is returned to the earth, and the soul is returned to the body. How long does this take? Allahu A'lam. How does this, can we see it? We cannot see it, but we know it happens. And then when the soul is returned to the body, and he's placed in the grave, that believing soul then hears the footsteps of his companions then walking away. You're all alone. And then two angels, they come to you, Munkar and Nakir. And they ask you three questions. Man Rabbuk? Who is your Lord? Wama Dinuk? What is your religion? Waman Nabiyuk? And who is your prophet? Only the believer will be able to answer, Rabbi Allah. My Lord is Allah. Wa Dini al-Islam. Wa Nabiyyi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give the believers the ability to make that statement. The disbeliever, the hypocrite, they cannot answer. The disbeliever, I don't know. What's your religion? They give a name of another religion. Oh, I don't know. The munafiq, who hides their disbelief, they were, well, you know, maybe, no answers. Only the believer will be able to answer those questions. Don't think the person is smart. I'll get the answers. I'll get the answers now. When that time comes, I'll answer the questions. It's like, you know, oh, I've got access to the exam next week. Let me write down the answers. So when the exam comes next week, I'll just write the answers. It doesn't work like this. Because maybe at that time of the exam, maybe you freeze. Maybe you forget. Who knows? So therefore, at that time, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who will give that individual person the ability to answer the questions correctly. And then the hadith continues. But then the hadith continues further on to then talk about the disbeliever. Because while that believing soul, in the morning and the evening, they're shown their place. If they're going to be from the people of Jannah, they will be shown their place in the grave. This will be your place in the Jannah. This will be your place in the Jannah, reminding them, Na'im al-Qabr, from the blessings of the grave. And as for the punishment of the grave, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from the punishment of the grave. Because it is a reality. Have you heard of Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh? Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh was a famous companion of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sayyid al-Ansar. He was the master of one of the tribes of Medina. And he was martyred after the Battle of Khandaq. He had an arrow and it hit his neck. And about 2 or 3 days later, he was martyred. When he died, as the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, اهتز عرش الرحمن بموت سعد بن معاذ. The throne of the most merciful. The throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shook when Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh, when he was martyred, when he died. Radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, if there was one person who was going to be saved from the squeezing of the grave, because this is something that happens to everybody. There's a squeezing of the grave. If one person was going to be saved from that, it would have been Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh. But even he wasn't saved from it. What happened is that there was one squeeze and then that was it. That's all he got, radiyallahu anhu. So the punishment of the grave is very real. And just as we mentioned in the hadith that the angels, they come waiting for that soul to be taken by the angel of death, the disbelieving soul, the soul is taken and it is dragged out of the body in pain. A number of brothers that I know, wallah, what I say is true. They are doctors and they work in A&E, accident and emergency. That means that there's an accident, like a car crash or something. The ambulance comes and they take them to the hospital. These are the first people, the first doctors to see these people. They have said, how many times that we have given medicines, morphine, to try and dull the pain that that person physically is going through, that the person is dying, they can't stop what's happening, and they give them everything. If they give them any more morphine, they'll be the ones who kill them. They give them maximum painkiller, but the person is still in pain, and they say, we have no answer. We have given everything physically possible to that person to ensure that they don't feel any pain. Yet we know that the person is in pain. That the soul is being taken from that body. And as it is mentioned in this hadith, it is dragged out of the body. You know cotton wool? Cotton wool. And then you put it in water. You soak it in water. And then you get a thorn or a fork, and you run it through that cotton wool. It drags strands of it. It doesn't take all of it. You can see it drags strands of it. You can imagine that? That is what the believing soul that is taken out of the body. Excruciating pain, beyond belief. That is how the disbelieving soul is taken out of the body. And the person at that time is absolutely terrified. وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ بِالْحَقِّ. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us. The intoxication or the reaction when a person is drunk, they don't know what is going on. At that time of death, that is what it is like for that person. قَالَ رَبِّ ارْجِعُونَ. Oh Allah, send me back. Please send me back. Let me do some deeds. No more chances. You had your time. And the soul is taken out of that body. The angels came, as with the believing bodies, with beautiful smelling shrouds and perfumes from the Jannah. Filthy, stinking shrouds are brought for this disbelieving soul. So the angel of death takes the body, saying, and the other angels, that they see this soul, they say, what is this filthy, malicious soul? This disbelieving soul? Who is this? And they say, this is so and so. And that the Jannah is never opened for them. Not like the believers. They are shown the Jannah. No. For the disbeliever, the Jannah is never even shown to them. And that is hirman. That is depriving them. Don't allow them to even see the Jannah, because they are not even deserving of seeing the Jannah. So then that disbelieving soul, wrapped in these filthy, stinking shrouds, the soul is returned to the body. And then two angels come and ask them questions. The same questions. Man Rabbuk? Who is your Lord? What is your deen? And who is your Nabi? They have no answers. But the angels that come to this person, that they come in a very scary and terrifying manner. It's not like when somebody comes to and asks you a question, you feel comfortable, you feel relaxed. The angel comes to you in a very scary and terrifying way. That in itself is punishment enough. But the punishment hasn't started. Remember, this is the life of the grave, brothers and sisters. We haven't even gone into what happens in Jahannam. We haven't spoken about even the blessings of Al-Jannah. This is the life of the grave. Then, while that disbelieving soul is in its grave with its body, the angel comes with a hammer and hits them between their ears, that their screaming can be heard around the world. However, jinn and mankind, we are saved from that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saves us from hearing such a scream. The animals can hear it. The animals, they can hear it, but us, we cannot. And if we were to hear it, would put such a fear into us. Who knows how we would react? So by Allah Jalla wa Ala's mercy, He hides that from us. So this long hadith of Al-Bara ibn Azib is a very long hadith. And if you have the time to go and read this hadith, read it. Because just as in many issues of our deen, of our religion, you find that there is the issue and the concept of hope. And then there is the concept of fear. It is not as Muslims you say La ilaha illallah, you've got Muslim name, that's it, you're going to Jannah. You have to pray, you can just go Jumu'ah. Be a Muslim when you like. Choose parts of the deen what suit you. That's enough for you. And you just live on hope. And then other people, they just have fear. Oh, you know what? Anything that I do is never accepted. What about, I didn't do this, and that's it, it's over. I'm sure to be from the people of Jahannam. There's no point me doing anything. So they end up not doing anything. If there's an extreme in too much hope, the person becomes complacent. I've done enough. You've sinned? Don't worry. Allah Ghafur Rahim. Allah's merciful. Don't worry about it. It's okay. And the other person who has too much fear, whatever I do is not enough. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله. Do not despair from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ جَمِيعًا. That indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives all sins. But the true believer has the balance. Has the balance of hope and fear. Not too much of one or the other. Like this hadith of Al-Bara ibn Azib. The hope that I will be from those believing souls. That I will have that reward and be shown in Jannah. I can be shown that reward before I enter. And at the same time, they say, we have to be careful. You have to be careful of the punishment that may occur in the grave. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was walking with some of the companions on one occasion. And the Prophet stopped. And the companions, they stopped as well. And he looked and they were passing by some graves. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he narrates the hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِنَّهُمَا يُعَذِّبَانِ إِنَّهُمَا لَيُعَذِّبَانِ. See these two people in the graves? They're being punished in their graves. They're being punished right now. وَمَا يُعَذِّبَانِ فِي الْكَبِيرِ. Not being punished for what you may be, what you think is a major issue. The first one, كَانَ لَا يَسْتَتِرُ مِنَ الْبَوْلِ. You might think it's embarrassing to say, but it's reality. The person didn't protect themselves in the bathroom. Azzakumullah. To this extent, Islam requires us to be pure, clean. When you go to the bathroom, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Azzakumullah, protect you from that. Some doesn't really care. You'll be punished in the grave for that. It's a serious, serious issue. And the other person, كَانَ يَمْشِي بِالنَّمِيمَ. The other person used to go around spreading tales about people, making things up. So there are reasons or actions a person will do in this life will be a cause of them being punished in the grave. In fact, النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم said, عَامَّةُ أَهْلِ الْقُبُورِ. Or كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, that the most people in the grave will be punished because they didn't keep themselves clean in the bathrooms. Subhanallah. Most people. So there are deeds that maybe a person is engaging in and doing it right now. That may be a cause for them to be punished. So you ensure and you make sure that you do actions that then don't lead to you being punished or being tried in your grave. At the end of every single of your salawat, of your 5 daily prayers, your 5 daily prayers are like the food and drink to your body. If you don't eat and drink for a day, what happens? You start to feel weak. For a second day, more than 3 days without water, you'll die. But you ensure that your body's fed with food and drink. Your soul needs food as well. It needs to be nourished. What is that nourishment? How do I keep my soul alive? Dhikr Allah. The remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, how do I remember Allah? By establishing your prayer. By establishing your prayer. I remember once that the brother, he said, you know, I was driving my car and I pulled up at the traffic lights. And just beside me, another car pulled up. Music was blaring out, so loud. It was so loud, I actually looked to the side. When I looked to the side, I saw it was a Muslim. I said, subhanAllah. He said, it's quite easy for me to say, astaghfirullah, may Allah guide him. But he said, you know what, I didn't want to do that. I said, Salaam alaikum. He turned the window down. Wait, actually, there's electric windows. He pressed the button and he came down quick. He said, I'll give you one piece of advice. What was the advice? Ya akhi, music is haram. What's he going to say? What are you talking about? You see, I didn't say that. I didn't say to him, music's haram. Why should he listen to me? He said, the one piece of advice I gave him, which I hope if he holds on to, will save him. He said, Akhi, my brother, never miss a prayer. Never miss a prayer. Because the effect of your prayer is what? Inna salata will what? Tanha an al-fahsha'i wal munkar. That the prayer itself will eventually keep away evil and falsehood. It has that effect on a person. Only if the person prays. And has to be consistent. It's not being smart. Well, let me just do it once a day and that'll have the effect. You can't cheat. You can't cheat Allah. You can't deceive Allah. You only deceive and cheat yourself. So your prayer is so important. And even Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in the last moments of his life, when he was passing out and waking up, pour water on me so I can stay awake enough. What was the first thing he said? Have the people prayed yet? Have the people prayed? They said, Ya Rasulullah, they're waiting for you. They want you to lead them in prayer. And then he would pass out. And then when he came around again, the first thing that he said, have the people prayed. So brothers and sisters, holding on to your prayer is your key to remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the way of success of you being from the believing souls who will receive that most beautiful reward in the grave. It's not all doom and gloom when we talk about the grave. Oh, the grave is scary. The grave, oh, don't talk about death. I don't want to know about it. Many people are like this. People are like that because they don't understand it. They don't want to know about it. But remember, whoever loves to meet Allah, then Allah loves to meet that person. And whoever hates to meet Allah, then Allah will hate to meet that person. And in the hadith of Anas radiallahu anhu, a man, he came to a Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. He said, Ya Rasulullah, inni rajul, I'm a man, lastu kathir as-salah, wala siyam, wala sadaqah. I'm not a man who prays a lot. That doesn't mean he doesn't pray 5 times a day.